Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. My name's Johnson, not Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I don't lift people over my head and body slam them onto a wrestling mat. But somehow, life has been doing that to me just fine, especially my wife, Carla. 18 years of marriage. That's longer than most people keep a gym membership or a New Year's resolution. We've got a 17-year-old son, Timmy, slow in the brain. The docs say he will always be slow. Can't help, but he is a sweet kid, a little naive. But he's ours, and he's got my hairline and his mother's ability to ignore reality. So picture this. I'm sitting in our kitchen, wearing my dad robe, the one with the coffee stain that refuses to die, when Carla walks in, looking like she's about to announce she bought a llama or decided to become a vegan yoga DJ. No, worse. She sits down across from me, sips her tea like she's in a Jane Austen novel, and says, "Johnson, I've been thinking. I want an open marriage." An open marriage. Let that sink in. I blinked at her, like maybe I'd accidentally put motor oil in my ears and misheard. Open, like emotionally open? Like we share more feelings? I asked, still hopeful. No, open like. I date other people. You can too. Freedom. You know, she smiled like she was offering me a muffin. Freedom? Lady, I asked for freedom when you made us do that silent couples retreat in 2018. Remember that? You said I couldn't even talk to the receptionist. Ah, I said, nodding like a monk going through a nervous breakdown. So you're saying, we've got the marriage part, the mortgage, the shared insurance, but you want to outsource the intimacy. She didn't even flinch. Exactly. I think it would help us grow. I laughed. Not just any laugh, the kind of laugh that makes neighbors turn their lights on. So, just to be clear, I said, you've had 18 years of monogamy, stability, me taking your mom to the hospital twice a year, and now you want to throw in a guest star in our marriage like it's Modern Family? She nodded, sipping her tea again. That damn tea. I glanced at our son, sitting in the living room, completely immersed in whatever anime or Minecraft theory video he was watching. God bless him, blissfully unaware that his parents were about to turn the family tree into a bush. I stood up and said, let me get this straight. You want an open marriage. But do I look like someone who's got Tinder options? You think middle-aged accountants with plantar fasciitis are hot property on the dating market? Carla, I'm 2 bad months away from using a CPAP machine. She smiled again. You don't have to date if you don't want to. Oh, thank you. That's generous. So I get to sit at home watching Antiques Roadshow while you play the field like it's the freaking Olympics. Now I know what the rock bottom feels like. I just didn't expect it to be delivered by someone who once asked me how to boil eggs. Every man with dignity, heck, even a guy with 2 brain cells and a Wi-Fi password, would feel that gut punch. But hey, I'm Johnson. I took my vows seriously. I thought open meant we leave the windows up when it's stuffy, not our marriage. So if you ever feel like life's going smooth, your job's okay, your kid's halfway functioning, and your spouse isn't secretly writing romantic poetry for Eduardo from Zumba, just wait. Marriage. It keeps you humble. Or, in my case, it throws you off the top rope. And now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to make another cup of coffee, Google how to respond to your wife wanting an open marriage, and probably cry in the laundry room. Cheers. So there we were again. Same kitchen. Same damn tea. Same woman I've shared taxes, in-laws, and a mattress with for 18 years. And she's still on her open marriage will improve us, TED Talk tour. No stage, no microphone, just her and a mug that says live, laugh, love, like that makes betrayal cuter. Carla goes, Johnson, you're not hearing me. This could be the best thing for us. It'll bring new energy into our relationship. We've been stuck in a rut. A rut? Lady, this isn't a rut. This is a marriage. A contract signed in front of 120 people, some of whom we didn't even like. Look, she continues, setting her mug down dramatically like she's about to announce the invention of fire. It's like adding spice to a dish. You know, trying new flavors. Now I'm thinking, okay, first of all, our marriage isn't a dish. It's not a Netflix cooking show. But if it was, it's boiled cabbage. That's what it is. 18 years of soft, flavorless, mildly depressing boiled cabbage. No butter, no salt, just that pale, squeaky texture and smell of surrender. So now she's saying, let's add chili flakes. Chili flakes named Greg. Or Jason from her office. Oh great. I mutter, open marriage is the paprika I didn't ask for. Fantastic. She doesn't stop. Oh no. She gets up, paces like she's Gandhi reinventing relationships. It's not just about sex, Johnson, she says. It's about connection, newness, growth. I hold up a finger. Quick question. When you say growth, do you mean emotionally or like medically, because some of these connections might require antibiotics. She ignores me, of course. I've been reading a lot of articles, she says. Oh great, here we go. No one ever said, I've been reading a lot of articles, and then followed it up with, so I made you banana bread. No, it's always disaster. I lean back in my chair, arms folded. So, what? We download some app and swipe until one of us catches an STI or emotional damage. That's your plan to reignite our spark. She gives me that condescending smile. The one I last saw when I tried assembling the IKEA bookshelf upside down. Johnson, she says gently, like I'm 6 and trying to eat a crayon, you don't have to do anything. It's just, we both deserve to explore. Explore, I said. I once spent 45 minutes in the Home Depot parking lot looking for my car. That's the extent of my exploring. I'm not Vasco da Gama. I'm tired, my feet hurt, and I just want peace. She sighed, like I was the unreasonable one. I thought we were partners, she said. Partners? Yeah, sure, I said. You know who else were partners? Butch and Sundance. And we all know how that ended. She got quiet, sipped her tea again. I swear, that mug is the devil's chalice. I look at her, really look at her, and think, wow, 18 years. I helped her through night school, her gallbladder surgery, her weird phase of blending kale into everything. And now she wants to fix our marriage by turning it into a Google Calendar group project with strangers. Fantastic. Open marriage. The magical cinnamon she thinks will make our sad boiled cabbage taste like tiramisu. Well, bon appetit, Carla. Hope it's worth it. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go stare into the fridge for 20 minutes and question all my life choices, starting with 2007, when I let her convince me to get matching tattoos that now look like faded ants on my arm. God help me. You know what the cruelest part of all this is. It's not the open marriage speech. It's not the tea mug or the talk of new connections. No, the cruelest part is I remember how it started. Me and Carla. College. The land of ramen noodles, bad decisions, and people pretending to understand Nietzsche after one philosophy class. I met her in sophomore year. She was standing outside the humanities building, holding a half-eaten granola bar and arguing with a squirrel. I swear, that was her thing. She had fire. Passion. Some might call it mild chaos, but I found it charming. She looked at me and said, you ever feel like everyone's pretending? I blinked, mid-chew on a bagel, and said, yeah, especially me. I'm supposed to be in econ class right now. She laughed. That laugh. That was it. I was hooked. We started dating. It was the usual college romance. Cheap coffee dates, studying in the library and getting absolutely nothing done, and making out behind the science building like we were auditioning for a CW show no one asked for. We had fun, real fun, dumb fun. One time, we got kicked out of the campus pool because we borrowed a canoe during a sorority party and tried to recreate a scene from The Notebook. I paddled us into a floating pizza box and flipped the canoe. Romantic? No. Hilarious? Yes. Hypothermia? Slight. And then there was the first time we had sex. Look, I'm not gonna brag, okay? Maybe just a little, but afterward, she said something along the lines of, Johnson, where have you been all my life? Next thing I know, her friends, and I mean multiple, suddenly wanted to study with me. Oh yeah. One of them, Lisa with the loud earrings, cornered me at a party and said, is it true what Carla said? About your talents. I blinked. What talents? My grilled cheese technique. She leaned in. No, the other talent. She said your pole's taller than the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower. I mean, come on. I nearly choked on my drink. Lady, this isn't Paris. And I'm not a tourist attraction. One even slid me a note in the campus library that just said, you up? It was 3 p.m. I was surrounded by dictionaries. But I turned them all down. Because I was in love. With Carla. The granola bar squirrel whisperer. I was loyal, heart and body. I even deleted a girl named Monica from my phone because she liked too many of my Instagram posts. That's commitment. That's sacrifice. Fast forward 18 years, and here I am. Same man. Same heart. Same, Eiffel Tower. Give or take a few inches of inflation. Still full of energy, at least in my own mind. But apparently, now that's not enough. Now I'm being told we need external stimulation, like our relationship is a dying group project, and she's trying to bring in a guest speaker. Sometimes I wonder, should I call one of those old college friends? You know, just for a reality check? I won't. Obviously. I'm not that petty. Okay, I'm a little petty. But the thought helps. It's better than crying into a bowl of dry cereal while my wife shops for soulmates like it's an Amazon sale. So no, I'm not going to cry. I'll joke. I'll remember the good times. The chaos. The canoe. The absurdity of being young, foolish, and in love. Because if I stop laughing at all this, I might actually start caring. And that sounds exhausting. So there I was, again, back in the kitchen. Same mug, same woman, Same psychological hostage situation. I was stirring my coffee like it owed me money, and Carla, my still technically wife, was explaining the spiritual benefits of sleeping with strangers. It's about growth, Johnson. Expansion. A new spark, she said, eyes glowing like she was pitching a yoga retreat and not a marital hand grenade. I leaned on the counter and looked her dead in the eyes. Okay, let me ask you this, Carla. Let's say I screw another woman, casually, hypothetically, with appropriate consent forms signed. Then I bring her home, to our house. What happens then? She blinked. Well, we'd have boundaries. Oh great, I said. Like what? I can do it as long as she doesn't eat from the good cereal box? Or she only stays in the guest room. This isn't Airbnb, adultery edition, Carla. She laughed, but not because it was funny. No, it was the "you're being dramatic" Johnson laugh. I know that one. I've heard it ever since I cried during Marley and Me. And what if, I continued, God forbid, someone, you, me, one of these sparkling new partners, starts to actually catch feelings? You know, that little annoying thing that happens when humans spend time with each other. She sipped her tea. I swear that mug is now the official mascot of my emotional collapse. She said, we'll manage. No matter what, Johnson, it's still you and me, till our last breath. Oh, fantastic. So now we're the Titanic couple, holding hands as the ship sinks because one of us drilled holes in the hull for personal growth. I squinted. So even if I say no? Even if I reject this 50 Shades of Delusion plan, you're still going to do it? She set the mug down, very gently, like she was defusing a bomb, which, frankly, I was about to become. She looked at me and said, whether you agree or not, I need to find my spark, Johnson. I'm getting older. I need to feel alive again. I stared at her. Then I nodded slowly. Oh, so your plan is to jump off the monogamy boat with a parachute labeled midlife crisis, and I'm supposed to stand here clapping like it's Cirque du Soleil? She looked sad for a moment, then softened her voice. If it doesn't work, if things don't go how I hope, I'll come back to you. Come back to me. Like I'm a backup plan. A romantic U-Haul waiting in the driveway. Well, gee, Carla, I said, I feel special. Nothing says commitment like, don't worry, babe. I'll be right back after I go find myself in other people's bedrooms. She sighed. Like I was being the irrational one. Like I just said I wanted to start a commune and raise goats in Montana. I leaned over, lowered my voice. Just so we're clear, when I said, till death do us part, I didn't realize the death was going to be metaphorical and slow and from the inside. She didn't respond. She just picked up her mug and walked away. Probably to go journal about alignment or chakra unblocking or whatever the hell TikTok is selling now. And me? I stood there in the kitchen. Same robe. Same coffee. Same marriage. Now with 40% more existential dread. And I thought, at least boiled cabbage didn't betray me. After Carla dropped her philosophical nuke and casually floated off to the bedroom like she'd just suggested trying a new paint color instead of detonating our marriage vows, I did what any self-respecting man does when the floor of his life starts cracking. My only concern was my boy, Timmy. What will happen to my boy once I divorce his mother? Now you may want to know how evolved or matured my boy is. Let me give an example. Timmy was 16 years old, and I had to have the talk with him. You know the talk. The sex one. Every dad knows it's coming. You try to dodge it like a slow-motion dodgeball in gym class, but eventually, it hits you right in the dignity. I was nervous. Sweaty palms. A PowerPoint in my brain that kept crashing. I sat Timmy down on the edge of the bed, him, wide-eyed like we were about to discuss treasure maps. Me, gripping the armrest like turbulence was coming. Okay, bud, I began. There's something we need to talk about. It's important. Grown-up stuff. About, well, how babies are made. He blinked. Like magic? I almost said yes and left the room. But no, I was brave. Foolish. Doomed. I started explaining, gently, sensibly, scientifically but sanitized. I tossed around words like mature connection, private parts, and mutual respect, like I was reading from a UN pamphlet. And to his credit, Timmy actually listened, nodded, even furrowed his brow like a tiny scholar. Then, the gears turned. That sparkle entered his eyes, the sparkle that has led to 90% of my gray hairs. He squinted at me and said, okay, but Daddy, when two mute people have sex, how do they talk dirty? Do they just wave a lot? Or make intense eye contact? I nearly died. Choked. I wheezed so hard I thought I saw my own soul leaving my body for a minute. Timmy, what in the... He looked so serious. Like, do they just sign super fast? Or throw pillows if they're excited? Or maybe they do Morse code with their feet. I was hunched over, tears coming out of my eyes, not from sentiment, from sheer loss of control. Buddy, I said, once I could breathe again, that is not a follow-up question I was prepared for today. He shrugged. I'm just saying, if you can't talk and you're naked, it seems confusing. I wiped my eyes, stood up, and declared, "Okay, class dismissed. I need an oxygen tank and a therapist." He nodded, got off the bed, and casually said, "Cool. I'm gonna Google what Morse code is. But not the sex part. That sounds complicated." And off he went. And I stood there, frozen, knowing I had attempted to fulfill my sacred parenting duty, and instead got bodied by a 16-year-old's philosophical TED Talk on mute intimacy logistics. That moment lives in my soul now, forever etched in memory, like a tattoo that says, "Nice try, Dad." I tried to be wise. He responded like a stand-up comic with a PhD in chaos. And you know what? I kinda admire it. But I'm still never doing the talk again. There I was, sitting on the couch, curled up in a mental blanket made of Timmy's weird questions and ancient dad memories. I was smiling. Actually smiling. Tears were in my eyes. Not because of heartbreak or regret or the feeling of my marriage being slowly boiled like a sad frog in tepid water, but because I had just remembered the time my son genuinely asked how mute people negotiate dirty talk during sex. And in that moment, life didn't seem so heavy, until I heard her footsteps. That familiar, measured rhythm of slippers on hardwood. Like a jury foreperson walking in with a verdict. I turned my head. There she was. Carla. Still beautiful. Still maddening. Still looking at me like I was her favorite emotional Rubik's Cube. And for one stupid second, I thought she'd say something soft. Something like, "What are you thinking about? Are you okay?" But no. She stood at the edge of the room, arms crossed like she was about to give a TED Talk on modern infidelity, and asked, "Have you decided about the proposal? The open marriage?" Just like that. The proposal. Like it was a vacation package. Like she was offering me a weekend in Ibiza with optional betrayal included. Then, with complete sincerity, she added, "Don't be a jerk, Johnson. Nothing is going to change between us." I blinked. Nothing's going to change. Sure. Except the entire foundation of our relationship, the concept of exclusivity, and the number of toothbrushes in our house. But I didn't say any of that. I just smiled. A soft, dry, ironic little smile. Because what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that the tears in my eyes weren't from heartbreak. They were from trying not to collapse laughing at the mental image of 6-year-old Timmy saving Swiss cheese for aliens and asking if Cloud P was a thing. Nothing was going to change between us. Lady, everything already had. But I pulled it together. I took a deep breath. And I said, calmly, slowly, with just the right level of Oscar-worthy restraint, "We'll have this conversation tomorrow. I just need a little time to process this." She nodded, almost relieved, like I was being mature, like we were having an adult moment. And I watched her walk away, back down the hall, back to the bedroom, back to wherever she was spiritually Googling ethically non-monogamous soul fulfillment without full spousal consent. But me? I sat back. I stared at the paused TV, still showing The Rock holding a championship belt over someone's flattened body. And I thought, she thinks I'm still deciding. She has no idea. I already have a plan. Not out of revenge. Not out of spite. Out of self-respect. Out of sheer survival instinct. And maybe, just maybe, out of a tiny, lingering spark that reminded me who I really was. The man who fielded mooncheese theories, TV poop conspiracies, and mute people sex questions without losing his mind. And if I could survive that, I could survive this too. That night, I slept in the guest bedroom. Not because we fought, no plates were thrown, no pillows screamed into, but because after the whole open marriage pitch, I needed some distance. And maybe some symbolic bedding to go with my emotional exile. The mattress in there felt like it had been designed by someone who actively hated spines. Perfect match for how I felt. The next morning rolled in like a fog bank of dread. I got dressed like I was heading into court, not the kitchen. And there she was, Carla, sipping her coffee like this was any other Saturday. Like she had already received a yes, and was just waiting on the official seal from the Ministry of Marriage Shenanigans. She smiled at me. A little smug. A little too casual. Meanwhile, my stomach was tap dancing. Timmy, of course, was in his own little teenage orbit, headphones on, cereal in hand. Zero awareness that the Titanic of his parents' relationship had hit an iceberg and was now arguing about lifeboat distribution. By noon, I'd rehearsed what I was going to say more times than a best man with stage fright. I looked at Carla, cleared my throat, and said, "Hey, can we talk?" "Now." She nodded, walked over, sat down. No nerves, no hesitation. She genuinely looked like someone expecting an RSVP to a brunch invitation. Exactly 5 minutes into the conversation, just as I was about to detonate the well-polished monologue I'd been mentally carving all morning, the doorbell rang. Timing. Impeccable. I looked at her and said, "Can you get that?" She gave me a slightly irritated glance, you know, the kind of look people give when their spa day is interrupted by reality, and walked to the door. I sat back. Showtime. She opened it. And there they were. Her parents. My in-laws. Standing on the porch like a jury that had not been invited, but definitely came to deliberate anyway. Her jaw dropped. Visibly. She blinked, confused. Tried to quickly slap on a smile. Mom. Dad. What are you doing here? Well, her mother said, breezing in like she owned the house. Your husband called. Said it was important. She turned and looked at me. I smiled. The kind of smile that says, oh yes, I called the reinforcements. Her father gave me a stiff nod, his version of a fist bump. I nodded back. War buddies now. Then Timmy wandered out from the hallway, rubbing his eyes, still in his pajama pants, completely clueless. Grandma, Grandpa, he yelled, instantly perking up. He ran over and hugged them like we were hosting a surprise birthday, instead of a surprise intervention. Are we having a barbecue? He asked. Sure, Timmy. Just toss moral integrity on the grill. Medium rare. Meanwhile, Carla stood frozen at the door, trying to compute what was happening. I stood up, walked over to her, leaned in gently, and whispered, you said nothing was going to change. So, I figured it was time to bring in the people who've never changed, your parents. And with that, I poured everyone coffee. Because now, the real conversation was about to begin. And this time, I had backup. As she returned from the front door, walking back toward the table like someone who just found out their birthday surprise involved an IRS audit, I watched her. Carla, head full of questions. Probably thinking, why are my parents here? Did I forget Mother's Day? Is this a midlife-themed intervention? She sat down slowly, her smile now replaced by a processing wheel spinning behind her eyes. And right as she reached for her coffee cup again, still trying to look composed, I cleared my throat. Hey, hon, might want to stay there for a sec. She looked up, blinking. What? Yeah, just don't get too comfy. My mom and dad should be here any minute too. Don't want to make you get up again. She froze, like a deer in headlights. Or more accurately, like a deer who just realized she scheduled a surprise double deer family reunion and forgot to wear pants. She opened her mouth to speak, probably to ask you invited your parents too, but before she could even get the first wah out. Knock, knock, knock. Boom. Cue the second act. I didn't even turn around. I just sipped my coffee and muttered. And there they are. She stared at the door like it had grown fangs. Then, without a word, got up and walked over like she was heading to the guillotine. Door opens. Cue cheerful invasion. Well, hello there, my mom said, like she was walking into a family brunch and not a potential emotional courtroom. Hi, sweetheart, my dad added, with that casual father-in-law energy that says I'm here to smile politely and support passive-aggressive justice. Carla, bless her, looked like she had just opened the door to a surprise IRS audit, a surprise colonoscopy, and a surprise baby shower all at once. But she pasted on a smile, the kind you use at funerals and bad high school reunions, and stepped aside. Timmy, who had just barely settled down after seeing his first set of grandparents, leapt up like a puppy on sugar. Grandma, Grandpa, he shouted, running up like they were giving out free PlayStations. He hugged them like nothing else in the world mattered, which, in his world, was accurate. And there they all were. All four parents. Our son. Me. Her. A full audience. A full panel. A full courtroom. I stood up slowly, like I was about to deliver closing arguments on a courtroom drama, except the jury knew me since birth, and the defense was wearing house slippers. I glanced at Carla, who had now taken her seat again, stiff as a statue, eyes darting like she was calculating if a window escape was socially acceptable. Well, I said, loud enough for the whole family theater, shall we begin the show? And so it began. I stood there in front of them all, both sets of parents perched on our living room chairs like judges on a family version of The Voice, and Timmy sitting on the stairs, suddenly forgetting his cereal, and fully tuned in like this was the finale of a show he didn't realize he was starring in. I cleared my throat. Hello, everyone. A few polite nods. So, I didn't want to call you all here, especially on a weekend, especially when most of you were probably planning naps or bingo. I glanced at my father-in-law, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. But we've reached a situation that, frankly, calls for a bit of collective awareness. Carla shifted in her seat, arms crossed tighter than a TSA agent on high alert. I continued, real slow and clear, like I was reading terms and conditions aloud at a wedding. See, my wife, my lovely, enlightened, ever-evolving wife, has recently proposed something new for our marriage. I gestured toward her, dramatically but with just the right hint of petty showmanship. And since it involves opening up our relationship, I thought, why not open it up all the way? Starting with the family. Since marriage is not just a union of two individuals, it is the coming together of two families as well. Boom. Carla's head snapped toward me so fast I swear I heard a vertebrae protest. You called my parents? She snapped, whisper shouting through gritted teeth. Why would you do that, Johnson? This is personal. I didn't flinch. I sipped my coffee, set it down gently, and looked her dead in the eyes. Well, sweetheart, you wanted to open our marriage. I figured the first step in opening up was communicating. So, I just opened it with the people who watched us commit to each other in the first place. Cue stunned silence. My mom nodded like she was watching a slow-burning soap opera. Her dad blinked. My dad leaned forward slightly like, oh, this just got good. Timmy was sitting, absolutely still, spoon frozen in midair, cereal soggy, brain probably going. Wait, is this why Dad didn't let me break the TV? Because this was coming out of it. I turned back to her. Go ahead, I said gently, motioning to our audience. Tell them what you told me. About how opening the marriage could bring us closer. Or help you find a spark. Or my personal favorite, how nothing would change. She looked around the room, suddenly realizing this wasn't a casual conversation anymore. This was public relations. Her mother leaned forward. Carla, what is he talking about? She hesitated, glaring at me like I'd just exposed her browser history on a church projector. And me? I stood there with the calm of a man who once survived Timmy asking if the moon was edible and if mute people invented foot Morse code. I've seen weird. This wasn't even the top 5. So now, the ball was in her court. Family present. Timmy watching. Coffee cooling. All of us waiting for her next move. And me? I was just warming up. There she was, Carla, sitting dead center in our living room like a TEDx speaker who wandered into a church potluck. She took a deep breath, then started her little sermon. Opening a marriage, she said, with all the calm of someone reciting a guided meditation, is becoming the new normal. It's about emotional growth, exploration, finding parts of ourselves we've suppressed. I swear I saw her mother's eyebrow try to crawl off her forehead. It's something between a husband and wife, she added, now with just a hint of irritation, and it's not about disrespect. It's about connection. Evolving. Right. Because nothing screams connection like introducing Greg from the gym into your marital itinerary. I was just about to throw a sarcastic grenade when a tiny voice piped up from the stairs. Daddy. Everyone turned. Timmy, holding his half-eaten cereal bowl, legs dangling off the step, looking at me with wide, curious, completely innocent eyes. What's opening a marriage? And just like that, silence. The kind of silence you get when someone accidentally sits on a whoopee cushion at a funeral. Carla's jaw tightened. Her pupils dilated. She looked like someone who'd just been hit in the chest with a water balloon full of shame. I took a breath, looked at my son, and said, as gently as I could, while still clinging to the last shreds of my sanity. Well, buddy, Mommy wants to sleep with other men. Gasps. Maybe. I didn't look around. I was too busy locking eyes with Timmy, who blinked like I'd just told him Santa filed for bankruptcy. Why? He asked, confused. Then, looking at Carla, he said, with the sweet sincerity only a kid could pull off. But Mommy, you're supposed to sleep with Daddy. That's the rule, right? Right, son. That was the rule. Somewhere between love, honor, and don't turn your marriage into a clearance rack. Then, in the softest, most knife-twisting tone imaginable, he added, how many men, Mommy? Boom. A mushroom cloud of awkward. Her face went from pale to marinated cherry tomato in 1.5 seconds. My mother quietly gasped into her teacup. Her dad blinked so hard I thought his glasses were going to fog. I bit my cheek. Hard. Because laughing right now would be both wildly inappropriate and also the most satisfying sound I could imagine. I reached over and gently set down my coffee. Looked at Carla. Go on, I said calmly. He asked a question. Let's all evolve together. She glared at me, furious, but trapped. And Timmy? He just kept looking between us, trying to make sense of this strange, adult puzzle where love suddenly involved extra players and awkward silences. I didn't plan for Timmy to speak up, but when he did, let's just say, the show officially started. She just stared at Timmy, blinking hard, her mouth slightly open, eyes starting to shimmer like tears were forming, but she wasn't ready to let them go. She just sat there. Still no answer. So, being the ever-helpful dad, I filled in the blanks. Well, champ, I said with a sigh, looking at him kindly, your mother hasn't made any final decisions yet, but she is planning to sleep with other men. We just don't have the exact head count. His nose scrunched. But Daddy, only my mom and dad are supposed to sleep together. That is the marriage rule. If other people sleep with Mommy, do I call them dad as well? You know that feeling when a child says something so pure, so unfiltered, it slices through a room like a lightsaber? Yeah, that. The entire living room went silent. All 4 parents were stunned, eyes bouncing between Carla and Timmy like they were watching an emotional ping-pong match with the fate of common sense on the line. Then, boom, her mother, my mother-in-law, The same woman who once gave me a 17-minute lecture on using coasters suddenly piped up. She leaned forward, pointed gently toward Timmy, and said, "Even Timmy knows the rule of marriage. And he's not even an adult." You could feel the sting in that one, like holy water on a vampire. Carla's face? Somewhere between melting candle and deer in traffic. She was blinking fast now, tears right on the edge, but still no words. So I gave Timmy a nod. "You're right, bud," I said. "That was the rule. Still is the rule. But sometimes, grown-ups forget the rules, or they want to make up new ones. And no, you don't call anyone dad apart from me." He frowned. "Mom, so now you will have to divorce my dad." Carla looked at him shocked and said, "No, son, that will not happen. But Mom, when you decided to desire other men, my dad lost all his importance in your life. He is worthless to you. So just drop him and move on." Boom, and my son just dropped the hammer. Case closed. The prosecution rests, Your Honor. I looked at Carla, still frozen. No defense. Just emotion, confusion, and a whole lot of regret she wasn't expecting to face in surround sound. And me? I leaned back in my chair, folded my arms, and thought. This wasn't just a conversation anymore. This was an awakening. One that started with a kid asking a simple question, and ended with an entire room realizing some rules still matter, even to a naive kiddo. She finally spoke, eyes glassy, voice trembling, trying to gather herself and whatever dignity was still hiding somewhere between the couch cushions. I made a mistake," Carla said, barely audible. "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I thought maybe it would bring us closer. I was trying to do something good for us. For us. Like she was trying to donate a kidney instead of blow a hole through our marriage with a philosophical flamethrower." Her voice cracked, full of regret, maybe guilt, maybe just panic that the script had flipped and she was now the one being examined under a family microscope. I looked at her, and I didn't feel anger. I felt done, exhausted, because if it takes our naive son asking why mommy wants to sleep with other men for the light bulb to go off in her head, then something far deeper than our bedroom has broken. I took a breath, leaned forward. "I get it," I said calmly. "You were curious. You wanted to find a spark. You thought this would somehow enhance what we have." I paused, locked eyes with her. "But Carla, if it takes our kid, a boy who still thinks clouds might be edible, to snap you back to reality, then we're way past fixing this." She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. Gently. "No drama. No more explanations. I've made my decision." Her face dropped. The room went dead silent again. "I've already contacted an attorney," I said. "Filed under irreconcilable differences. And I mean that in the literal sense. We clearly don't want the same marriage anymore, or the same rules." She blinked. Processing. And now came the part I'd rehearsed, but never imagined I'd say aloud. "Not after 18 years. You were a stay-at-home mom. I respect that. We built a life together. I'm not out to destroy you." I looked at both sets of parents, then back to her. "You'll get a fair share. Of the money, the assets, all of it. You gave 18 years. I'm not going to pretend that doesn't count." She was stunned. I think deep down, she still expected me to forgive, bend, negotiate, like I was a character in one of those open marriage articles she probably bookmarked at 2 a.m. But this was real. I looked over at Timmy, who was just sitting there quietly, eyes wide, still hugging his cereal bowl like it was a life preserver. I gave him a soft nod. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. He'd already asked the most honest question in the room. She tried. Oh, she tried. After I'd said my piece, calm, civil, and clearer than a freshly cleaned windshield, she broke, sobbing, saying she didn't want to lose me, that it was all a mistake, a moment of confusion, that she didn't mean to hurt anyone. Tears were flowing like a Hallmark monologue with a guilt hangover. "I don't want anyone else," she said, voice shaking. "I only want you. I lost my way. But here's the thing. Everyone in that room, her parents, my parents, and even Timmy, could tell. This marriage was done. Not because of anger, not even betrayal, but because something broke, and she was the one who dropped it. She went upstairs after that. Quietly. Probably to cry. Maybe to scream into a pillow. Or Google if regret could reverse legal filings. She tried later, one-on-ones with each parent like a contestant doing damage control after a bad reality TV episode. Didn't work. Her parents gave her tight-lipped sympathy, but no backing. Mine? They just shook their heads and said nothing. Which, coming from my mom, was the emotional equivalent of a middle finger dipped in quiet judgment. Even Timmy, our wide-eyed, moon cheese-loving philosopher, didn't side with her. He came up to me later, frowning, twisting his fingers like he was solving world peace. "Dad, why would mommy want to be with other people if she loves you?" I crouched down and looked him in the eye. "Buddy, you know how you really like chocolate chip cookies, but But then someone says you should try raisin cookies just to explore. He nodded suspiciously. And then you try them, and they're dry, weird, and betray your tongue. He squinted. Yeah, like betrayal raisins. Exactly, I said. Sometimes, people chase raisins and forget how good chocolate chip was until it's too late. He paused. So, Mommy chased raisins. She sniffed the jar, buddy. And that's all it took. He nodded solemnly. That was that. Next week, the papers were served. She cried again, a bit softer, like even her tears knew they'd lost power. When she realized nothing was going to change, that I wasn't bluffing, wasn't playing chess, wasn't waiting to be convinced, she stopped fighting it. The divorce finalized like a graduation nobody cheered for. Then, I moved on. I bought a house, smaller, simpler mine. And I got a German Shepherd, because therapy is expensive, but a dog that barks at vacuum cleaners is cheaper and more loyal. Timmy and I started fresh. Now I had 2 kids, 1 human, 1 canine, and both were full of innocent chaos. One day, I'm making breakfast when Timmy strolls in, followed by the dog, who somehow learned how to open the fridge. Dad, Timmy asked, if dogs could talk, would they ask for cookies or gossip? I blinked. Both, I said. He'd eat your homework and then tell everyone about it. Then he pointed at the dogs, business end. Why do dogs sniff each other's butts? It's how they say hi, I shrugged. That's disgusting, he said, wrinkling his nose. Yeah, well, humans invented the internet. So let's not get too cocky. And the dog? He just wagged his tail like he was thrilled to be part of this emotionally repaired sitcom. Life didn't end with the divorce. It rebooted. Quieter. Funnier. With fewer sermons about sparks, and more questions about moon cheese and raisin betrayal. And honestly, I'll take that version of love any day, even if it comes with drool on my slippers and a kid who still thinks clouds taste like cotton candy. So now I'm a single dad, with a naive adult who asks more existential questions than a philosophy major, and a German Shepherd who thinks the mailman is plotting a home invasion every morning. My house smells like bacon and dog shampoo. There's Lego landmines in every hallway. And you know what? I'm happy, or at least stable, which, after everything, is basically the emotional equivalent of winning the lottery. But life, of course, doesn't stop throwing curveballs. Dating. Yeah, I tried. After months of swiping, ghosting, and being told by one woman that I gave off divorced dad energy, which I am, thanks Karen, I gave dating a solid college try. There was Rachel, who brought her therapist's notes to dinner to save time. There was Denise, who told me she was poly with a pirate aesthetic. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. She showed up to brunch wearing a leather corset and said, "Ye be a landman, but I'll give ye a shot." Yeah. No thanks, Captain Regret. Then there was Julia, smart, funny, sweet. Until halfway through date 3, she casually mentioned she was still technically married, but spiritually separated. Spiritually separated. At that point, I just ordered dessert to go and promised myself I'd rather cuddle with a dog than unravel someone else's tarot-deep emotional knot. So, no, I haven't found her. Not yet. But here's the thing. Every night, I get to come home to a kid who asks if clouds wear pajamas, and a dog who barks at nothing like it owes him money. I don't wake up dreading weird conversations about exploration. I don't sit at dinner wondering which coworker my wife is emotionally flirting with. I sit with peace. With my German Shepherd, whose tail is a metronome of chaos. With Timmy, who just last night asked, "Dad, if love was a sandwich, what would be in it?" And I said, "Trust, respect, and a really good slice of cheese. But if it's got lies in it, it's just soggy bread." He nodded like I'd just cracked the Da Vinci Code. So yeah, maybe someday, I'll meet someone who doesn't want to open things. Someone who actually believes in choosing one person and building a life, not a rotation. But until then, I've got a boy with a big heart, a dog with a bigger bark, and finally, a life that's mine again. And that, my friend, is more than enough. For now, dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.